You are watching NewsHour's World. This is a very sad day for America, and it was also very sad driving through Washington, D.C. and seeing the filth and the decay and all of the broken buildings and walls and the graffiti. This is not the place that I left. It's a very sad thing to see it. When you look at what's happening, this is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America. This is the persecution of the person that's leading by very substantial numbers in the Republican primary and leading Biden by a lot. So if you can't beat him, you persecute him or you prosecute them. We can't let this happen in America. Thank you very much. Elect, you want these trials to happen. President Trump are not taking any questions there on the tarmac before getting on his plane. We do have the live picture there. This taking place in Reagan, the National Airport in Washington, D.C. as you can see Trump's plane there. We'll see if we have any different shots from around the country. But of course Trump has left Washington's federal courthouse after pleading not guilty on conspiracy charges alleging a plan to overturn the 2020 election in the bid to cling to power. Trump entered his plea in the same courtroom where more than 1,000 of his supporters have been charged with federal crimes for their participation in this January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol that halted the certification of President Joe Biden's victory. He was released on conditions including that he has not have contact about the case with any witnesses unless attorneys are present. Of course, saying in this, the judge said if you fail to comply with any conditions of your release, a warrant may be issued for your arrest. Trump's face appeared set and serious, and he occasionally wrote on a paper in front of him throughout the hearing as it drew to a close. Trump, who thanked the judge before leaving the courtroom through the same door he entered. Special counsel Jack Smith sat in the front row of the courtroom gallery about 15 feet from Trump's seat at the defense table with his lawyers. They didn't appear to make any obvious eye contact before or during the hearing. Of course, the complication of Trump not being allowed to discuss the case with potential witnesses was underscored by the entourage that traveled with him to Washington on Thursday. He was accompanied by top campaign aides, including several longtime advisors who were part of the efforts to overturn the election results there in Washington, D.C. So another live picture there in Washington as they will depart. Let's take you out though to just before the arraignment, as we were hearing from Trump's attorney, Trump's counsel there. Not relation to this case in particular, but just in general. Let's listen into what she had to say earlier on Live Now. And he, and frankly for bringing this, I don't think Jack Smith really thought it through. There only has to be proof that number one, President Trump believed that this election was not completely honest, and number two, Jack Smith has opened himself up to a can of worms that we can now look at and really examine. You believe that he's innocent and that this is all set up. Why not bring you to trial as soon as possible before the election so that you can clear his name? Yeah, I would love to do that, but there's something called discovery, and when somebody wants to say that a 2020 election was perfect and that President Trump has no right to object to it, we've got to go show him all the facts, and there's a lot of facts to show, so everybody has their time. And to say that Donald Trump should then be rushed and not be given the same fair proceeding that anybody else is, it's just frankly un-American. It's not fair. It's not the way our system works. A lot of the lawyers who helped him try to overturn the election, unnamed co-conspirators in the indictment. Jenna Ellis isn't. Why do you think that is? I'm not going to speak to co-conspirators or anybody else. I represent President Trump. Let's go one more. There are a number of others testimony, and there's a number of aides that have said that the president was made aware that he lost the election and yet continued to argue that it was stolen from him. How do you reconcile those two things? Well, I think that everybody was made aware that he lost the election, but that doesn't mean that that was the only advice he was given. As anybody understands what happens in the Oval Office, there are a numerous amount of advisors and politicians and lawyers, not just one or two, that are giving you advice and telling you what they believe is true. So he may not agree with Mike Pence, he may not agree with one of his lawyers, but that doesn't mean that there weren't other people advising him exactly the opposite, and the president has a right, as every one of us do, to listen to several opinions and make their decision. Yeah, I remember hearing Hillary Clinton and Stacey Abrams argue their elections were not right. I mean, how in the wee aponcization of the DOJ didn't happen then? No, of course not, but if your last name's Trump, it's very different. So Hillary Clinton could have a problem when she lost the election, and we could have a complete liberal meltdown, as we all saw. But when we have dignified disagreements, we take them to court. We say do things patriotically and peacefully. He is to blame for things that he did not himself do, and that's what we're seeing. Frankly, folks, this is not about that. This is about politics. This is about 2024, period. The end. You're just looking in there to a counsel for President Trump, not in relation to this case. Let's give you another live now look as they are continuing to leave Reagan at National Airport. We're going to watch this shot as it continues on. Thanks for so much for joining us over the last hour plus. Here is the arraignment taking place in Washington, D.C. A very quick trip within a round trip of just about 5 or 6 hours likely, but you can see as the Trump playing now in line, and certainly also different indictments in line. This one, the third of so far for the former president, of course. The first one coming from New York, a state filing there on indictment about alleging falsified business records. Then the most recent indictments in Florida coming about classified documents and retention of those documents. That is the state Mar-a-Lago, of course. That was also a federal case. This one similarly a federal case. They're talking about conspiring to defraud, this in relation to the January 6th probe as well. So certainly we did see a lot of people on the ground in Washington, D.C., both for President Trump and also against. Thanks for watching NewsHour's World.